Hello everyone, hope you're having the most fantastic day today. Welcome to the Film Insight channel. For today's video, we're going to discuss some more restaurants featured on the UK version of Kitchen Nightmares and review how they're doing now. So, sit back, relax, and without further ado, let's get right into the content, guys. The Fenwick Arms. For another Kitchen Nightmares episode, Gordon Ramsay heads over to the failing Fenwick Arms to rescue it from closure. Owned by Brian and his partner Elaine, they've been running the pub for well over 3 years but are starting to lose money. Regardless of the fact that Brian has 20 years in the industry under his belt, they're burning £1,500 a week, which is why they called out to Ramsay for some aid. Upon his eventual arrival, the famous chef meets with the owners and points out that the interior is way too cluttered. Through some discussion, Ramsay learns that Brian and Elaine work 100 to 200 hours a week and only take Christmas off. Hungry, the Kitchen Nightmares host scans the menu, which is packed with upscale dishes as well as sauce and wine lists. Ordering a prawn dish that comes served in a martini glass and a rack of lamb that's extremely tough, Ramsay's left feeling disappointed. Following his mediocre meal, the famous chef reminds the owners that their food should be homely and rustic since it's a pub, but it's pretentious and dreadful instead. Leaving and returning the following day, the famous chef is shocked to hear that the restaurant is £250,000 in debts and that the couple was close to losing their home. Hoping to see the restaurant in action, Ramsay observes the dinner service and is appalled with what he sees. Not only does Brian forget a lot of his own recipes, but the kitchen is way too cluttered with unnecessary equipment, including an espresso machine bought secondhand from eBay. It becomes clear that Brian is a hoarder since he has tons of plates in a wide array of sizes and wants to keep 3 microwaves despite only needing 1. After persuading the owner to throw out some of the items, he finally managed to make some room in the kitchen. Soon after, the famous chef encourages Brian to let go of his overcomplicated menu as well and replace it with something more simple and cozy. Agreeing with this suggestion, the owners rewrite the menu and Ramsay later gifts them with their first day off in years. Once the menu is done, Ramsay puts the new dishes to the test by using them for the following service. All in all, everyone seemed to love the food and atmosphere, but things took a drastic turn when the staff revealed something very peculiar. Supposedly, Brian told his team off camera that nothing would change and even tried bringing back some of the plates that he hoarded. Thanks to a heart-to-heart with the owners, the famous chef helps them realize that change is necessary if they want to succeed. Fast forward to near the end of the episode, after Ramsay trains the staff and cleans up both the interior and exterior, the restaurant's future was seeming bright. A while later, when Ramsay revisited the place, he was so disappointed to see that Brian reverted back to the old menu and was very controlling towards the staff. What's worse, a rival pub called the Highwayman opened up very close by, which had noticeable effects on their business. Eventually, the place was purchased by new owners who remodeled the place in every way possible. While it did close down back in 2011, it reopened under the same name in June of 2013, but became a pub/seafood restaurant. Unlike the Fenwick of its past, this version seems to have overwhelmingly positive reviews, rocking a 4.5 on TripAdvisor. Rococo. Gordon Ramsay heads over to Kings Lynn, Norfolk to bring a restaurant called Rococo back on its feet. Owned by a former Michelin star winner named Nick Anderson, his restaurant was initially met with immense success. However, he's currently struggling to keep it afloat, is losing close to £2,000 a week, and was forced to move into the restaurant with his wife and young children. Facing homelessness if his business fails, the owner called out to Ramsay and his team for some professional guidance. When he finally arrives, the famous chef meets with Anderson, who reveals that they only have 8 bookings for a Saturday night, which is awful. Hoping to understand why this is the case, the Kitchen Nightmares host sits down and scans the menu for something to eat. Ordering a fish soup that smelled nasty, some mushrooms and duck egg on toast that was soggy, and a scallop dish that was rubbery, Ramsay finally understood why they were short on bookings. Heading into the kitchen soon after to confront the owner about his piss-poor meal, the famous chef expresses that the food is not only outdated and overcomplicated, but simply bad. Soon after, Ramsay meets with sous chef Tim and Anderson before the next service starts to see how they work in the kitchen. Interestingly enough, Tim reveals that he gets most of his ideas and inspiration from the popular show Ready Steady Cook, hosted by Ainsley Harriott. Anyway, Ramsay takes a look at their freezer, which is packed with the best ingredients that just aren't being used. Ultimately, the staff is forced to eat it all themselves before it goes bad, which leaves the famous chef with a burning curiosity as to why they just don't buy cheaper produce. Attempting to observe the dinner service, Ramsay is unimpressed to see Anderson working at a sluggish pace and notices that the customers are getting increasingly impatient. As orders kept coming in, the owner became overwhelmed with the mounting pressure and things completely fell apart. By the end of the night, Ramsay criticizes Anderson for spending way too much time overcomplicating the dishes. Following the awful service, the famous chef meets with Susanna, the owner's wife, who points out that her husband never takes her out anymore and that she's miserable. Revealing that the restaurant is £100,000 in debt, she exposes the fact fact that they're only open because of the help of friends and family. Considering the fact that the business's current direction wasn't working, Ramsey suggests that they change the name to something more inviting. He picks the name Maggie's, which is referencing the St. Margaret's Church nearby, but Anderson thinks that it sounds cheap. Through a one-on-one with the owner, Ramsey helps him realize that he needs to start afresh and move on from Rococo's pretentiousness. Fast forward to near the end of the episode, after Ramsey changed the name to Maggie's, simplified the menu, and revamped the dining room, the business got the second chance it needed. Post Kitchen Nightmares, the owners reported that the business was making £5,000 to £8,000 a week, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, it seems like this wasn't enough, since around a year after this episode was taped, the owners filed for bankruptcy and shut the place down. Eventually, the building was purchased by new owners in 2008 who renamed it to Luigi's, but this closed down as well. Currently speaking, the business goes by the name Market Bistro, which serves fresh food made from locally sourced produce. Morgan's. As our final entry, we're going to discuss a restaurant that Gordon Ramsay tried to rescue called Morgan's. Owned by a woman named Sandy, she runs the restaurant with the help of her daughters Helen and Laura. Being £100,000 in debt and 6 months away from losing everything, the owner reached out to Ramsay for his professional help. Upon his eventual arrival, the famous chef meets with the family and quickly learns that all three of them are managers. Taking a look at the menu, which is filled with tons of odd and unconventional flavor combinations, Ramsay decides to order something anyway. Getting some pan-fried prawns that were cooked solid, a sausage dish that was big enough for a dinosaur, and toffee pudding that was actually good, Ramsay was pretty split on the food. Heading into the kitchen to talk to the restaurant chef Phil about his meal, they get into an argument because he can't handle the criticisms being made. He gets even more heated when he finds out that the pudding was perceived to be good since it was made by Emma, the assistant chef, and not him. Visiting Sandy's home the following day, he finds out that the business's financial records are a disaster since there isn't a clear record of their income. Later on, he comes to understand that Phil doesn't have any formal training and doesn't do any prep since he isn't paid for it, which makes Sandy's job worlds more difficult. As an example, Sandy was forced to run to the supermarket an hour before the evening service because Phil refused to prepare in advance. Observing the service soon after, Ramsay was horrified at the sight of Phil carelessly sending out burnt food to paying customers. Following the ghastly service, the famous chef tries to see who would take the blame and takes note of something quite interesting. While Sandy claims that the service went well since she didn't receive any overt complaints, Helen highlights that it was horrible. Bringing the sisters as well as Sandy aside soon after, Ramsay makes Sandy the host, Laura the assistant manager, and Helen the general manager, which makes Laura walk off angrily. These assigned roles would cause issues later on into the episode, with Laura becoming petty, rude, and uncooperative. Since she basically refused to do her job, Helen was forced to come to work on her day off to fill in for her immature sister. To breathe some life into this dying restaurant, Ramsay decides to invite some celebrities and actresses to the restaurant's relaunch. Before that, the famous chef comes up with a simple and affordable menu that would make use of locally sourced ingredients. After the taping of this episode, Phil decided to quit to get some formal training, and Emma was promoted to head chef, which is awesome. Despite the fact that the business started to make a profit, Sandy decided to put up the place for sale, listing it at £99,000. Well, that'll be all for today's video here on the channel. I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to drop a massive like down below and comment your thoughts. Subscribe for more content like this, and turn on those sweet bell notifications for instant access to our content. Have a good one, guys.